beginning of my video. Boom!
Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring land.
Oh,
Come
just
on.
kidding.
Blasphemer! We know all things. Welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here.
Gabe.
And we are here for a Throwback Thursday, ladies and gentlemen.
Throwback Thursdays.
And we are so excited to be able to give to you, especially me. I got my Italian Stallion shirt on. I got the Rocky poster in the background. New addition to the studio. We are reviewing or discussing really my all-time favorite movie, Rocky. So let me give a little bit of context, because if you've seen Rocky or if you go in and watch it, you're going to watch it and you're going to think, how is that his favorite movie? That was kind of slow. That was kind of this or that. This is my all-time favorite because as a kid, I grew up watching all the sequels. And the first one I didn't love all that much. And then as I became even more and more of a fan, I kept giving it a chance. And it grows on me every single time until about 10 years ago. I just absolutely love it. I still love it. I watched it again yesterday, prepared for this for the millionth time. And it's just the whole series, this movie, all-time favorite. I love this stuff.
I mean, I gotta say, Sylvester Stallone took a chance, and we're gonna talk a little bit, like you said, this is more discussion. So he took a chance on himself. You know what I mean? He when they originally weren't going to cast him. They loved the story, but they weren't going to cast him because he couldn't act. And that's actually when we're going to talk about this film. It's a classic, but you can see how he's actually grown as an actor, because at times you're like, man, that's really choppy as far as his acting is concerned. But he believed in the story so much, and the source material was so good that people overlooked it. Now, I got to say, I love Rocky. I love the new iterations with Creed and Creed 2. The one I don't really like or care for is the Tommy Gunn one or whatnot. What was that? Rocky 5, right? And I'm like, oh, but whatever. It is what it is.
So I have so much to say about this movie. I'm just ready to jump right into it. So first of all, I got to disagree with you. I think this is one of, if not his best acting performances he's ever given. And it's to his credit, because the world didn't know him before. Yes, he had been in movies before. Yes, he had been in semi-pornos before. But this was his first mainstream role. And what Gabe was talking about is Sylvester Stallone wrote the story for Rocky. He went and saw the Chuck Webner fight with Muhammad Ali, went home, got inspired. 86 hours later, the first draft of Rocky, it changed several times. The producers loved it. They didn't want anything to do with him because he's not that good of an actor. Also, to that point, Carl Weathers, who was auditioning for Apollo Creed, who is a very seasoned actor, especially at that time too, he came in, he read with Sylvester Stallone, and in the middle of the audition, he told the producers, I'm sorry, I can't get into it because this guy's a bad actor. Can you get me someone who can really act? And they said, well, Mr. Weathers, he's going to be Rocky. He's Sylvester Stallone. He wrote the film. And he's like, oh. So, I mean, he definitely had a lot to go through. But when you watch his other performances, especially in the 80s and 90s, you see that, man, he is so focused. He's so determined in this character. It's his best performance besides Creed in the entire series as well. He's just really, really focused. He really plays that down and out character so well. And he was connected to the character. This film, there's so much to say. And we want to try to keep these not too long. So let me start off by saying, or asking you the question, Gabe, who is the villain in this film?
Oh, come on. Without a doubt, the villain in this film is Apollo Creed, and I love it. And here's the thing about it, okay? It's the thing about, maybe this is where my affinity for villains began, because I remember everybody loving a Rocky and watching the movie and thinking to myself, Apollo won, you know what I mean? But it was like, you know what I'm saying?
Split decision.
Spoiler alert, but Apollo won. But it was, and as I got older, I started appreciating the story, the underdog story, the fact that Rocky was able to stand up to this world champion and say, I am, all right, I'm a man just like you. We're going to go in here, we're going to bleed, we're going to bang it out. And, you know, the heart later on, you began to appreciate. But how could you not love Carl Weathers' performance of Apollo Creed? He was the epitome of Ali. He embodied Ali so much. It's funny that this is what the Chuck Webner and Ali fight is what inspired this film, because to a man, Apollo Creed was Ali. He was brash. He was very loud. He was a showman. Deep down, he was a good person or whatnot. And you find out that out as the series moves on. But when you really, what he presented to the world wasn't that. But I loved Apollo Creed. Now I know some people are gonna say that you know, Apollo wasn't a villain, and later on they try to de-villainize him or whatnot. But it's boxing industry as a whole and that's how it is. You know, later on they bring in the Don Kings. That's how boxing is. So, talking to a person who's been there. I fought for close to 10 years, okay, from high school up into my early 20s until I got injured. And I've seen the griminess in boxing, okay? I've seen the politics that goes along with boxing, where a lot of times a name, and I'm going to have you give them that quick 5-minute synopsis of a whole film, but just a name alone will get you a fight that you probably don't deserve because it sells tickets. Bottom line, it sells tickets and it's a business. And you know, just to get off this rant or whatnot, Julio Cesar Chavez is one of the greatest Mexican boxers of all time. When I tell you all time, by the time his son started really fighting and becoming along, I was already injured, but my younger brother Benny, who also boxed, was in the gym. All right. This guy walked in the top rank, and Bob Arum literally picked the worst guy in there for his father-son. You know, it was Chavez's last fight and his son's first big fight. This guy was a chump. Benny would have destroyed him. Benny destroyed the guy he fought many a times sparring. All right, this guy, but they handpicked what they call a tune-up fight, or you know, and that happens in boxing so much. That's honestly what killed the sport eventually, and why people went to UFC, because you saw so much politics. But I've seen it firsthand, and here. Let's be honest. Did Rocky deserve to even have that fight? Absolutely not. Okay, but
and that's the thing with this movie is, you know, there's going to be people who are going to complain about several things. They're going to complain that the fighting's not realistic, and no, the fighting's not realistic. You don't have a boxing match that's full speed all the time for 15 rounds. Like, just get out of here. They're going to say that there's no way that he got a chance, but the movie does a great job by explaining that and showing that, you know, this guy that he was going to fight had a broken metatarsial or whatever, however you say that bone name. And then the next person went to LA, gained 50 pounds. And then the next person, you know, everyone else didn't want to prepare in just 5 weeks because they want to do this on January 1st, 1976, the 200-year anniversary of the country's independence. And they want to make this big whole thing. That's why he wears the red, white, and blue trunks. And no one wanted to fight the champ and get embarrassed in just 5 weeks. And so what does Apollo do? He's a businessman. He's already spent, his agent or his businessman says $1 million in publicizing the fight. He looks at the list and they say, what about this guy? What about this guy? No, I don't have any heat from that guy. Well, what exactly are you looking for, Apollo? This is what I'm looking for. The Italian stallion. Think about who was the first person to come to America? An Italian. What would be better than to face off against one of their descendants? And he's thinking about, you know, the whole picture. He's looking at what's going to make us the most money. What's the best situation? We've been given some lemons. What's the best lemonade that we can make out of it? That's why he got a shot. And I love when the promoter, who's also stressed out, when he goes to Rocky and he's all excited, he's like, how would you like to fight the heavyweight champion of the world, Apollo Creed? And Rocky's like, no, because he knows himself. He even says in the movie, I have no business being in the ring with this guy. This guy is the greatest. What am I going to do? But then eventually he feels a little bit of pressure within himself. So this comes back to my question I had for you. Who's the villain in this film? And everyone's going to say Apollo Creed, but Apollo Creed is so gosh darn likable that he's not that obvious villain. And he's not out to wrong Rocky. He's not out to do something wrong. He's just the guy that Rocky's got to face. So this brings us to the original story of what is the conflict in a story. It's not always a good versus evil. This conflict is man versus man, but it also, there's 3 villains, in my opinion, in this film. First, there's Rocky against himself. It's man versus man. He is his own villain. He has something to prove, but he is going through the destructive way of 64 fights, making barely any bit of money. He obviously has talent. Mickey even tells him, you had the talent to be a good fighter, and you became a lay breaker. You wasted years being a second-rate loan shark. You did not put your talent and your, you know, focus into this sport. The second villain is Mickey, his trainer, who is just bringing him down and not giving him a locker, and he's making him pay because he did not take his craft more seriously until this opportunity came out. And you find out that Mickey is one of these sick people who I love, one of these sick people that wants to punish people, but that's their way of showing love. And then he goes to Rocky's house and he says, hey, I want to train you. And then Rocky and Mickey are a perfect match because they don't know how to handle their emotions. Rocky has this tirade, which most people watch and say, oh, this character is horrible, I can't stand it. I love that tirade. And that's what I believe got Sylvester Stallone the Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He showed Mickey all the pain and the hurt of the last 10 years with him trying to get his attention by going off and saying, oh, you want to come to me now? Now that I have the shot, now you want to train me? What, you want to come in here, move in here? Go ahead. My house stinks. And he's putting everything on this guy. He's putting everything on everyone else. But inside, he knows that he's a person he has to battle against. This movie, the reason why I love it so much, not only does it have one of the best scores of all time by Bill Conti, not only is it paced near gosh darn perfectly, even for a slower movie, this movie has one of the best character arcs of all time, in my opinion. You have you have Rocky Balboa, who has no business going against Apollo Creed, who has a chance. Why? Because he has the heart, because he has the determination, because all the stars aligned, and he had the ability and the advantage of Apollo Creed giving him no chance whatsoever. Apollo Creed was all about the show. We got to go. He's even telling him when he's fighting him in the first round, hey, let's make this go to at least 3 rounds. Why don't you calm down a little bit? Because I'm going to knock you out whenever I want to. But then when he gives him his best, he's not able to knock him out. He hits him down. He comes back up. And what does Rocky do in that first punch? Boom, he knocks him down. First time he ever. I mean, I'm so excited. I love this movie so much. But the synopsis is basically what you said. Nobody gets a chance at the title for a circumstance. It's also about the love story between him and Adrian. The love story is a little weird. It's a little creepy when he pins her in the corner, but she's so shy. She does like him. She does care about him. She just has no idea how to explain that. Right. It's about that underdog story. And the last thing I'm going to say, because I've been talking so much on this rant, is at the end of the movie, this is what tells us so much about the character Rocky. He does not care about the title. He tells Adrian when he was out at the Megaplex looking at all the posters and complaining about the wrong shorts or whatever. He tells Adrian, I don't care about the title. I just want to prove to everyone and myself that I'm not just another bum in the neighborhood. I want to go 15 rounds with the champ because no one's gone 15 rounds with Apollo Creed. If I can do that, then I know that I'm not just another bum in the neighborhood. And when the fight's over, and the commentator's yelling at him, Rocky, what? There's going to be a rematch. There's got to be a rematch. You just had the greatest match of your life. You got to do another one. He's like, I don't care about that. Get away from me. All he cares about is Adrian.
Adrian, yeah.
It was a love story between him and Adrian, the person that he loved when he first met. He kept those turtles and that fish because he bought it from her first day at the job. He cares about Adrian. What is the first thing he says when she comes through the crowd with her hat falling off and she sneaks in? What's the first thing he says?
Adrian,
I did it. The first thing he says to her is, where's your hat? I mean, all he cares about is her. All he cares about is, do you still love me? He even tells her, don't leave town. I love that line before he goes to the fight. His first thing when he is in this monumental situation is, where's your hat? I mean, he just had the greatest match of his life, but he won in his heart because he won the heart of Adrian. That's all that mattered to him. I love this movie.
You know, it's funny. I've actually watched the real Chuck Wagner Ali fight, and it was so similar. Ali till his deathbed denied he got dropped. Ali got dropped. Okay, he was like, I was off balance. It was a hard punch.
I want to say it was the first round too, wasn't it?
It was early in the fight, but he got dropped, and Ali was shocked. And then that's when Ali became vicious. Now I have been there. Okay, bro, when you give somebody your best shot. And I mean, a shot that you should drop him, and the guy just keeps coming, you lose your heart. Like at some point, you're like, what just happens? And you see that happen in this film when Rocky's like, I'm not going down no more. And Apollo Creed is punishing him. And this guy keeps coming. He keeps coming. When you cannot hurt this guy, it's a matter of time before the fatigue sets in, and he's going to hurt you. And that's when real fear sets in. I love what you said, and I was incorrect. I said Apollo Creed. That's the third villain. You're right. The first villain for any fighter who's ever stepped in the ring. I don't care if it's UFC, if it's boxing. If you are stepping in the ring against another man, the very first opponent is yourself, because that fear, I cannot explain to you that fear. Anybody has said that stepped in the ring and said, "Oh, I don't have any fear." Stop it. Stop it. I don't care who you are. You've had fear, okay? Because you don't even know if I can do this. I'm not sure. I think it was in Jean-Claude Van Damme. One of my favorite lines in that movie is when Jean-Claude is like performing for the judges to try to get in the tournament, and he breaks all these bricks with a special move or whatever that's only known from the Tanaka clan. And Bolo Young is there, and he looks at him and he goes, "Very good, but bricks don't hit back." I've seen guys, Nick, that go in there and they're amazing at the speed bag. Their coordination is unbelievable on the heavy bag, on the pads, but they haven't been hit. They haven't been hit. Let's see how all that coordination, all that training happens the first time. Boom, you get hit, and you're like, "Oh, that hurts." Listen, everybody's a warrior until you get hit, and that was the first time that Apollo Creed had ever faced a guy that was willing to die. Most guys aren't willing to die. Most fighters do stay down because they know I don't have more to give this guy. And unless you get knocked out cold, you see it's almost like quitting. Like, I don't have anything else to give this guy. And I you know what I mean? I'm hurt, but could I get up? Yes. But it's that like deflation. And Apollo Creed has never seen a guy that just won't go down. I love how, I think it's like the 11th round or the 12th round. No, it's the 11th round. Apollo just absolutely destroys Rocky. He figures it's over. He gets up, and Rocky's like, everybody's like, okay, he's down. And all of a sudden he gets up, and you just see Apollo's face. That's where Apollo
puts his head down, and he doesn't know what to do.
He doesn't know what to do.
Nothing left for him at that point. He all his arrogance, all his confidence, and again, I love the character Apollo Creed. Absolutely love that character. 100%. I don't think he's a villain whatsoever, but he is that conflict in the movie. He understands. I don't understand. And from watching the Rocky movies a million times, it's a movie. Obviously, it's fictional. Obviously,
right.
But this character was all about heart. That's what Mickey tells him in the third one. You have heart. You had heart, and no one could have stopped you. We're going to end our discussion right here. I don't need to grade this film because it's my favorite of all time. A+++, a million pluses. We'll get Gabe's grade in a second. But one thing I want to say is, even though it's a fictional character, even though it's a movie, Sylvester Stallone was selected and entered into the Boxing Hall of Fame because of the impact that this film had and the other films had in the boxing world and the popularity of the sport. That's all I got to say. So in my mind, Rocky Balboa is a real person because he's in the Hall of Fame, for crying out loud.
I remember being at Top Rank, and we're going through our cycles. So you go from speed back to heavy back to pads, you know, and they've got Eye of the Tiger playing in the background, bro. They've got Rocky posters all over the gym. He inspired, even though he wasn't really a fighter, but he inspired fighters to dig deeper and say, you know what? I can do this. I am. And yes, a lot of people will complain about the fight as far as like, oh yeah, the action wasn't real. Fights don't last that long. Actually, when you go to the history of boxing, man, fights, and this is back in the day, we're talking back in the day, they used to go insane amounts of rounds, bro. 50 rounds, 60 rounds. And, back when it was bare knuckle boxing, and was it as action paced as this? No. It would be incredibly impossible to keep up that pace. But even a 15-round fight, man, you see some of these guys back in the day that say, oh, this isn't possible. Watch some of Ali's great fights. Him versus Joe Frazier. It was super, super scary. But, that's my opinion. Again, gonna give it an A+, super A+. Any other thoughts, Nick? Final thoughts?
I just love this movie. If you watch it a few times, which, no one wants to do that. Give it a chance. It is a slower movie, but man, it's a masterpiece. Last thing I want to say is everyone got nominated for an Oscar for this freaking movie. So we're talking Burgess Meredith, who played Mickey, got nominated and he won for Best Supporting Actor. Not Burt Reynolds. I can't think of his name right now. I want to say Burt Young, who played Paulie. He got nominated. Talia Shire played Adrian. She got nominated. Sylvester Stallone. He got nominated. It won the Best Picture, for crying out loud. This is a great movie. Go ahead and check it out. And until next time.
We know all things.